Post 1975 question for you. It's snowing, I've been inside watching horror movies all day, and I had a conversation with my brother that got me thinking about this, because we both have this movie, but it's not the same movie. What horror movie as a kid scared you the most? Had the biggest effect on you? Fucked you up the most, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, because I think it's a rite of passage for most children, regardless of where we grow up, you know, that at some point you're going to watch a movie that you really shouldn't watch. You know, it's not for your age group. In fact, if anything, this video is probably a, you know, a promotion for the age restriction on products. But of all the genres you can watch, I think the one that you really should not watch at a certain age is the horror movie. You know, you're not emotionally developed enough to possibly understand that some of the concepts that exist within these movies couldn't happen. Now, it's funny, because the movie I want to talk about is A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the reason I started thinking about it, there will be spoilers in this by the way, is because I watched the remake today, and it's not a terrible movie, it's not a brilliant movie, it's alright, you know, there's less productive things I could have done with that time, but then I thought, it's anywhere near as good as the original, but then I also thought, well, it doesn't really stand a chance, because I still somewhat, I'm not saying I'm massively traumatised or anything, but I still somewhat to some degree carry a little something with me from the very first time I watched the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I would have been 9. I had watched a couple of other horror movies at the time. My parents were really very good at, you know, not letting us watch too many dodgy age-restricted products, but, you know, obviously, as with most people at some point, which is why I'm asking this question, one or two gets through the cracks. One was Alien, because my auntie Sheila taped it next door and let us watch it, you know, when we were around then. She was looking after us one day, and it never really scared me. I think as a kid, not so much now, the sci-fi element of it kind of detracted a little from the horror element. And the other one was American Werewolf in London, that my parents let us watch because we absolutely begged the crap out of them, based on the fact that everyone else had seen it at school, and if we went back to school having not seen it, you know, our life was over. And they were pretty much like, fine, shut up, here you go, we'll tape it off TV for you, but if you have nightmares, it's not a problem. I mean, that movie scared me quite a lot. I used to be terrified of walking to Cub Scouts as a child, because I had to walk across the common. And I think, though, child logic kicking in, at some point in my brain I always thought, well, if it's not a full moon, I'm fine, and if it is a full moon, I'll just chuck a sickie. But yeah, A Nightmare on Elm Street is interesting, because I don't know how I got to watch it, I really can't remember. I do remember watching it with my twin brother, and it scared the piss out of us. But I think the reason it really, really scared us was because, I mean, it's horrific. He's a child killer who's undead, and it kills you at your most vulnerable, you know, when you're sleeping. And even as a child, I knew that everyone has to sleep. So ultimately, it's just a matter of time before it gets you. Whatever you try, you can't stop it. I mean, some of the deaths, it's not aged brilliantly, but there are some truly horrific, terrifying moments in it, you know, and some absolutely fantastic gore. I mean, the poor girl flying around the ceiling, you know, and Johnny Depp getting turned into a smoothie out the bed, and then the claw in the bath when Nancy starts to nod off, you know, the elongated arms. There's some brilliant, brilliant imagery in this movie as well. But yeah, just this concept that he kills you in your sleep. And I think what really did it for me as a kid as well was, you know, there was nothing you could do. And when you thought that, you know, sorry, thought is TH, not F. When you thought that it was all over, it was resolved, you know, there was closure, it yanked the carrot away. And that, I mean, that was a staple of movies like this at the time, but that was just utterly, as a 9-year-old, I couldn't get my head around that. What, you mean you really truly can't kill him? Because even in Alien, there's a sense of closure, isn't there? And a sense of hope. You feel they have a chance, you know? And as I said, there's a sense of closure because Ripley escapes. And American Werewolf, eventually they do kill the wolf. It's very much the wrong place at the wrong time. So even now as an adult watching that, I kind of think, well, ultimately, if you're locked in your house, you're fine. But, you know, there's no such reprieve with A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think one of the defining characteristics of horror to me is the absolute removal of all hope. If the situation you're in is completely and utterly devoid of all hope, then fear will overwhelm you. And when fear starts to overwhelm you, you know, everyone will start to question the little things. You know, this isn't possible. Is it? You know, it's all well and good to hold your view of the world in place, but as a 9-year-old I didn't really have that. I'm not saying, you know, I was a complete simpleton, but I was generally scared to go to bed, because even though I knew stuff like this couldn't happen, when something scares you that much, when there's absolute removal of all hope whatsoever, and you know that there's nothing you can do, your brain starts to ask you questions. Again, probably comes back to the fact that you're not emotionally developed enough to watch it, which comes back to the fact about age restriction on products, but you start to question the logic, don't you? Which you certainly have a far less amount as a child, which is, well, he can't do that. Can he? And yeah, it lasted for, you know, a couple of months. It absolutely genuinely scared the piss out of me. And I think I can honestly say most people of my age, my generation, who watched that as a kid when they really shouldn't have, it had pretty much a similar effect on. So I'm pretty sure everyone has that horror movie, that one horror movie they should not have watched at that age as a child. You know, it's almost a rite of passage. So I would love to know what yours are. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.